I'm moving to do this one relatively quickly. Like a half an hour is my goal.
Good luck on that one, sir.
I have 15 movies I want to talk about real quick. Just really quick.
really quick.
Some of them are pretty high profile, and some of them you'll probably have to Google. But and one of them was actually I wasn't going to review, but somebody requested it apparently. So there's that. It's in here as well.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
But we're going to start with some of the more high profile ones. The first one being The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby.
Cool.
Now, yeah, you're probably asking yourself, and the truth is that I feel like I did this movie a disservice because I saw Harvey Weinstein's Them cut, and I understand that watching her and then him is the absolute best way to experience this movie. Because Them is basically him and her chopped up to shit and then put together as one movie.
Okay.
That's, as a whole, it's like a little over 3 hours long, and this cut is 1 hour and 59 minutes.
So you did watch the full movie?
Yeah, but the thing is, this is the cut that Weinstein submitted to, like, for awards and stuff.
Oh, okay, so this is the one that's getting awards.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only reason this cut exists, is so he had something to submit for awards, and now it's not even doing anything. But the thing about it is that I liked it so much that I will absolutely seek out her and him when I can. Apparently the DVD is going to be, like, all 3 of them.
That's cool.
Yeah, so, Jessica Chastain and James McAvoy are her and him. And they're just absolutely fantastic. This is probably one of my favorite Chastain performances, and you know I'm like a huge fan of her already.
Oh, totally.
And there's a great supporting cast. William Hurt is her dad. His work buddy that's kind of a mutual friend between them is Bill Hader. There's, shit, I'm drawing a blank on who played her sister. It's her friend in real life. But I forget her name. The girl from Teeth. Okay. Yeah, her. So, and it's really good. It has a lot of great, emotional peaks, and it really, the chemistry is where it really has to come together. And I was trying to figure out how exactly, because honestly, this version will probably seem really shitty to me once I see her and him. Mm-hmm. But as it is right now, I do really like it, so that gives me a lot of hope for that. Because I was curious to see what else is in there, but there were moments where you can kind of tell, like, there's a moment where, like, her sister's in the waiting room with some guy, and she, like, has a goodbye with him and stuff like that, and it's like, we've never seen this guy before, and I'm thinking, I'll bet there was an entire scene there where we got to know that guy.
Most likely.
So it's kind of weird that little things like that are in there where you can kind of tell they were probably a part of bigger things. But I still really like this, and it makes me really want to see the movie the way it's meant to be seen, mm-hmm. which is the way it played at TIFF last year. So, yes, I think the guy that did it's like a first-time writer-director, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But I really like this, so, and this is considered the shitty version, so I can only imagine how good it really is.
Wow, nice.
The next one is Men, Women, and Children. Speaking of movies that didn't go anywhere awards-wise.
Shut up. I had it on my first lineup. So did I.
Had Judy Greer in the screenplay in.
I had the screenplay in.
So it appears that Jason Reitman's gone really downhill lately, and this is basically his.
I blame Jeffrey Fletcher.
It's a lot like Disconnect, kind of.
I like Disconnect a lot.
And it's got a big cast list. There's Sandler, there's Rosemary DeWitt, there's Jennifer Garner, there's Dean Norris, there's from Fault in Our Stars, Ansel Elgort.
Yeah.
There is, oh god, who was the girl? I keep wanting to say Caitlin Dever, but I don't think it was her. I'm drawing a blank now, but, and Judy Greer is in it as well. And it's basically about the, broken relationships between, for lack of a better way of putting it, men, women, and children. Dennis Haysbert is in it as well.
Sweet.
And, we have Adam Sandler and his marriage and how they go about trying to figure that out. There's Jennifer Garner, who is, keeps her daughter totally and completely sheltered. And it's interesting. Jennifer Garner plays a part in this that is very... Her characters are usually much more likable than this, so it's very interesting to see her play this kind of character. Her character does a few things in this movie that are absolutely despicable, and it's really interesting to see her play that part.
It is Caitlin Dever, you're correct.
Oh, okay, good. Yes! Now, because we just saw her in Laggies, I thought that's what I was thinking of, but okay, good.
Okay, really good.
She's a great young actress, too, so...
Agreed.
There's her. But overall, I couldn't really get past just how bizarre this movie is. And not necessarily in a good way. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel kind of off. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for here, but something about this movie is, I don't know, like, not uncomfortable in the way that it should be, in the way you'd probably expect it to be given the subject matter. It's just a weird ass movie. And I guess it really just depends on the person whether you're gonna like it or not. I don't know. I don't hate Jason Reitman's last two movies. I actually thought Labor Day was okay.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Got
way bashed by everyone else, though.
But I absolutely understand where people are coming from when they say he's on a decline right now.
Yeah, totally.
So maybe he can come back after this, but
let's hope so.
We'll see what happens. It doesn't even feel like him anymore. Like a Juno and Up in the Air and like Young Adult, you kind of felt something.
That was completely.
And Thank You for Smoking doing it. I don't remember much about Thank You for Smoking, but they were kind of in their own little place. And now with his new ones, he's got to try and get back on track. So
agreed.
The next movie is The Good Lie. Another thing that shows that Reese Witherspoon's having quite a year.
Oh yeah.
This is the one I always forget about. Because she's in Wild, which is always doing really well for her. She's in Inherent Vice, and she was a producer on Gone Girl. And she's the star of this. I remember back in the day when people believed this was going to take her buzz from Wild. Like, they weren't sure which one she was going to go for as far as awards.
I'm looking at what it's about. Yeah, I can understand that.
The Good Lie is basically... She's actually not even the star of it. She is very much a supporting player, but her face is kind of there to sell it. It's basically through... Is it Sudan it said in?
Yeah.
And they come over... It felt like Rabbit-Proof Fence there at the beginning. And then they come over and... Now they're trying to find their place in America, but they're separated from their sister. So it's basically them trying to maintain their new lives in America while looking for their sister. And Reese Witherspoon is the worker that's kind of in charge of them and making sure they do what they need to do.
Okay.
And she becomes friends with them. Imagine if $1 Million Arm didn't have cricket in it. That's what this movie is.
Yeah, I get that.
It has kind of the same jokes in it where they kind of have to figure out certain things, but it's surprisingly a charming movie. Like, for a while, I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it, but once it really got going, I like it. Like, it's very, charming and kind of a feel-good movie. So, that's worth checking out, especially if you're a Witherspoon fan. She's just as wonderful and amazing as she's ever been here.
How about Corey Stoll?
Corey Stoll is the guy that... How did she know him? He's there to kind of help them out. Also, I can't remember exactly what his purpose was. It's been a while since I've watched a lot of these. I was just kept saying I'll put them all in one video at the very end of the year. Yeah, he's there to kind of help them out too. I think he gets them a job.
Okay.
The next one is The Trip to Italy.
Yes.
The sequel to The Trip, which we loved so much.
Love The Trip.
And yeah, it's the same concept. They try to kind of change it up a little bit because. Obviously The Trip is known for its, them doing their impressions. And they get in the car and the very first thing Steve Coogan says is, okay, now we're going to go this whole trip without doing impressions, right? And not even 10 minutes into the movie, they're all over The Dark Knight Rises. They're doing Michael Caine, they're doing Bale, they're doing Hardy, they're doing the whole thing.
That sounds fun.
There's not as many impressions in this one as there is in that one, but this one's actually a lot more story-driven than the other one is. There's a whole subplot here involving Steve Coogan and his son. And Rob Brydon has this whole story where he's getting a part in a Michael Mann movie. And the interesting thing is they actually use the impressions to create drama. Because Rob Brydon is getting himself pumped to do this Michael Mann movie. And he realizes that the only thing he can do is a Pacino impression. And it's the idea of he needs to get it away from his impressions and be himself, but he can't do it. And it's like a whole conflict.
Wow. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really good.
I really wanted to see this movie, and I have totally not had time to do so.
So yeah, I really dug this. I loved how they were able to do that. Like, it was because when he first said that, I was like, oh no, you gotta do the impressions. You just have to. That's what this whole thing is. But yeah, they actually cleverly, they didn't do as many impressions, but they actually used it to drive an actual plot and make a story from it. And I found that really interesting and really clever. So, yes, that's definitely worth looking at. And speaking of definitely worth looking at, our next movie is The Drop, which is based on a story called Animal Rescue by Dennis Lehane, the guy that did... he wrote Mystic River and Gone Baby Gone and Shutter Island. Everybody thinks he wrote The Town, but he didn't.
Oh.
Prince of Thieves by Chuck Hogan is what The Town is. And it was also being obviously heavily advertised as James Gandolfini's last movie. Like, for sure now. It's so depressing how many people's last movies we've been watching lately.
Yeah.
And good God, he's good here. Like, he's basically, like, it's not a far cry from The Sopranos, from what I understand. I never watched The Sopranos, but he's kind of that, you know, that lead criminal character. But the main story revolves around Tom Hardy and Noomi Rapace, and he's like this... the bar that they work at is a drop spot where basically, you know, mob money comes in and kind of waits there to be picked up.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And one day they get robbed. It was reminding me of not just the presence of James Gandolfini in a heist, but I was reminded a little bit of Killing Them Softly, as far as the setup. And they get robbed, and then that's a whole story. I won't say too much because there's a whole lot of twists and turns. And then there's a subplot where Tom Hardy finds a dog that's been beaten and put in Noomi Rapace's trash can. And that actually ends up belonging to a character that's important later. And all of this ties together into one story.
Nice.
And it's a really, really great crime movie. And I definitely would seek it out. It's definitely, like, nowadays, kind of top-tier crime movie. And a lot of people didn't... It just kind of came and went in theaters. And only a few people saw it. But I remember people who saw it singing praises to it. And I totally get that, because this is a really great movie.
Well, like Killing Them Softly, it also came out in September.
Yeah. It was really great to see Gandolfini go out in such a great role for him. Because my first thought was, I knew Tom Hardy was a star, but I wasn't sure if they were building up Gandolfini's name just to sell it as his last movie. But no, he's got a real good part here. Our next movie is Pride. Another movie that's getting a whole lot of love right now. Like, people love this movie. And it's one of those true stories where it's, I guess there was, I don't know much about it, but I guess in the UK it was a big, big deal about, the miners and the strike and all that stuff, and how this group of openly gay people came out and, like, supported everything, and made this, it was this big, you know, media circus, more or less. And you know, it's got, like, every acclaimed British actor you can think of in it. Bill Nye, Imelda Staunton, you know, everybody. Andrew Scott is in there, who actually won the British Independent Award for it. I thought there were more supporting players stronger than him, but he's the one that won it. And it's basically like that feel-good style that we kind of saw in The Full Monty and stuff like that.
Okay.
And yeah, it was just all right to me. Like, none of the characters really particularly stood out, but the performances are really good. Paddy Considine is another person that's in it.
And Dominic West.
Yes. So it kind of had that. It also kind of has a Stephen Frears vibe a little bit. But, yeah, I just thought it was okay. I didn't find it too engrossing, but I understand, apparently, you know, if you're, like, from there, I guess it takes part in a time period that was really, really big and important.
Yeah.
So, I guess I can understand where that love comes from, but I thought it was alright. Mainly for the performances is why I would seek it out. And it's just a general feel-good movie. You know. I'm predicting it does really well at BAFTA.
Okay.
Our next movie is I Origins, the new movie from the guy that did Another Earth.
You've been talking about doing this review for a long time.
Yes. It stars Michael Pitt and Britt Marling, and once again, I'm not sure how much is saying I'm not sure what's saying too much here, but it's okay. I really don't know how to go into this actually, because it's I'm not sure what's considered spoilery, but Michael Pitt is a scientist that is basically his main focus is people's eyes, and how he can, it's such a hard movie to describe. But that's, okay, the thing about what this guy does, what he did with this and Another Earth, is he makes, like, kind of, like, really low-budget sci-fi, I guess is what you would put it, if you had to put it in a genre. And he makes everything, it's these fantastical fiction stories, but he puts science in them to make them feel real. Like, it's crazy how, despite how out there it is, how real Another Earth felt. And he does the same thing here, where it's this really outlandish, crazy story, but it's performed so convincingly and executed so well that it actually feels like you're watching something that could really happen. And the performances are really great. Michael Pitt is really, really great here. It's a different role for him too. He's not playing like the psycho for once.
About time.
And of course, everybody loves Britt Marling. She's really starting to take off. There's a moment in the middle where it kind of starts to maybe, it just kind of coasts along at kind of a drag, but it really makes up for it. This movie has a powerhouse ending. The ending of this movie is like hair-raising. So yes, that definitely made up for any little tiny faults it may have had, but for the most part, it's definitely worth checking out. And anything else that has this guy's name on it in the future, I'm sure will be worth checking out for one reason or another. All right, our next movie is Why Don't You Play in Hell? A very fetching title.
Yeah.
That made a couple of top 10s, which has been getting attention now. This is a very interesting little piece. It's this crazy ass comedy, really. That's kind of in this. It's getting a lot of comparisons to Tarantino, and I do get that. However, it's basically, to use a very recent example, it's basically The Raid 2 as a comedy.
That's interesting.
With a movie center. Because the story here is we have two feuding Yakuza families in this bloody brawl over this, and the centerpiece of it is this girl that got famous as a kid. She had like 15 minutes of fame because she was in a really popular toothpaste commercial that had a jingle. That gets used in really dark ways later. And amidst all this, we have this film crew, not really film crew, but it's a guy and his little, he has a camera guy and a sound guy, or a sound girl, and an actor. And he is obsessed with the idea of making movies. Like, he's got such a fondness for it, and he decides that he's going to make a movie out of this. Well, not decides, but he's pulled in, and we see this. He's made to make a movie about the brawl that goes on between these crime families.
Okay.
And also amidst it is kind of a love story between the girl and a guy that she uses to pose as her boyfriend so she can escape them. And all this comes together for a memorably gruesome, bloody, Kill Bill style finale where everybody converges. And yeah, it works as a crime movie, it works as a comedy, it works as a satire, and it also works as just it's one of those movies that clearly has a love and passion for movies. He's friends with the projector, that's the old projector, and it's like a cinema parody, so callback.
Okay.
And it's just a movie that just in general has a love for movies, and it's always really great to see that. My only issue is, the more it goes on, the more it gets a little too proud of itself. It starts to get a little, I think it thinks it's a lot more clever than it is, but some of it's a little too obvious, and I think they were striving a little too hard for that, some of that really over the top stuff, but overall it still really works in all the aspects it reaches for, which is a lot of things. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking at, especially if you like movies like, Tarantino and The Raid and stuff like that. Our next movie is 71, which I briefly talked about when we talked about Unbroken, where this is kind of Jack O'Connell's, big breakout year. And this is another British movie where he is, he's a soldier amidst this riot that's going on, and it takes place in this big, political thing that was going on in 71. That's the title. And he ends up getting separated from his team, and he's just this soldier in this really, war-torn area. and he has to work by himself to get out of it alive. And there's a lot of things working against him for that. He becomes like the most wanted person in the city, and like everybody is out to kill him. And one person in there is Sean Harris, who was in charge of everything, and then he's like, you know, on both sides of it. Sean Harris, you probably remember from Prometheus.
Yeah.
Or recently, Deliver Us from Evil. He was the guy that was possessed in that. But he does really good here. He also got a British Independent nomination. This is another movie I wouldn't be surprised if it does well at BAFTA. It's got politics in it, it's got heavy drama in it, and it actually ends up playing out almost like an action movie, like a chase movie, which I found really interesting. And Jack O'Connell has this he is an insanely physical actor. Like, the shit he goes through in the movies he's been in this year is insane. And it's a really well-executed movie, and it really is, like, it's really disturbing, too. There's a lot of, like, the violence is kind of there in spurts as, you know, he goes along, but when it hits really, really hard. Which you could say about the movie in general. It's just a really hard-hitting movie. So it might be hard for some people to get through, but it's worth it anyway. Our next movie is an interesting movie called Comet, which is a romance movie with Justin Long and Emmy Rossum, I think. Yes. It's basically, the way I described it to somebody was, imagine if Cloud Atlas was a romance movie. Imagine if Cloud Atlas was about one romance. Because they say something at the beginning about it being in different universes or whatever, but the main concept is it's one relationship that we see in 6 different places of it. Like, we see them when they first meet. We see them when they're breaking up. We see them when they're meeting again. We see them when they're, you know, just hanging out in a hotel, and may or may not, the relationship may go totally in one direction or totally in another, depending on one decision that's made here.
500 Days of Summer. Yeah,
and it's not like chronological. We're cutting back and forth throughout the entire movie. And that's a really and it's also shot really well. Like, the cinematography in this movie, for being such a simple concept, is, yeah, you just have to see it. And the performances are really great, especially Justin Long is really great here, and Emmy Rossum too. I think the segment when they're in the hotel is when they get to act the most, and their performances really get to shine more than the other places in the movie. But yeah, it flows nicely. The editing is really well done. They cut back and forth at just the right places, and it comes to just the right ending. The ending shot of this movie is probably going to piss a lot of people off if they're really invested in it, but it's just one of those movies. I thought the ending worked really, really well, and I thought it left me feeling like I had really watched something worth watching. So, yeah, I'm really surprised how many movies on here are worth watching. I didn't think about that going in.
What are we going to call this thing? Because we haven't even talked about what we're going to title this video.
Just 15 movies.
That's it? Just 15 movies?
Yes, and we got 5 more to go. Real quick. I think I'm going to actually do it in half an hour. I could.
Maybe.
Okay. Nicolas Cage double feature. Yes! We're going to start with Dying of the Light. Dying of the Light actually has kind of... Nicolas Cage does not want you to see Dying of the Light, actually.
Really?
Because everybody that made it, really. Paul Schrader wrote and directed it, the guy that wrote Taxi Driver, and pretty much specializes in trash movies now. Nicholas Winding Refn was the producer on it, and it starred Nicolas Cage and Anton Yelchin. And all of them kind of went on protest against this movie because they shot it, and then I guess the movie was taken away from Schrader and, like, edited and, you know, scored and everything without his say at all. Like, they just totally completely took it away from him and made it their own. And he and Cage have basically said, you know, this is not the version. They never watched it, but they know for a fact it's not the movie they wanted it to be. And they're, like, imploring you not to see it. Because the studio just, like, really fucked with it. Basically, the plot outline is that he is, he was being tortured. It's kind of like The Railway Man, a little tiny bit.
Okay.
He was being tortured and beaten for information that he never gave up. And this is now having a long-term effect on him now that he's... Yeah, Cage is basically playing an old guy in this. Like, they gave him the gray hair and everything. And because of his injury sustained there, his mind is gone. Like, it's not quite Alzheimer's, but it's something to that effect. So, basically, before this kills him, or before his memory is totally gone, he wants to track down the guy that tortured him and seek revenge. And it's not... I understand. Maybe... I don't know. I don't know that I trust Paul Schrader enough as a director to say this would have been better under his absolute guide. Or Refn, for that matter. As Refn's made one masterpiece and then nothing but shit. But...
Well then.
So it's really hard to say. But it's still, you know, Cage gives his all, like always. That's why we love Cage so much. It doesn't matter if it's too over the top. It doesn't matter if the movie's bad. Cage loves being in movies, and that shines through in every performance he gives.
We reviewed a lot of Cage.
Left Behind. He was slacking a little bit in Left Behind. But
he wasn't Cage enough in Left Behind.
Yeah.
A lot of people said that.
So it's not like a bad movie or anything. Like, I tolerated it. Like, I was never sitting there saying, wow, what a piece of shit. It was just kind of a come and go movie.
Okay.
Like, it's not, you know... If you want to heed their advice and not see it, you're not missing anything. But if you watch it, I don't think you're going to hate life that much. So you'll probably almost instantly forget it, though.
Alright.
Our next movie is Outcast, a movie I wish I hadn't seen. It's kind of like... I felt like I was watching Season of the Witch again. But you forgot that movie existed until I said its name just now.
No, I didn't forget that movie existed.
With him and Ron Perlman.
Yeah, I remember that movie. Ugh.
He's actually, despite the fact that the poster is him, and just go to IMDb and see the picture that's there, you'll laugh your ass off. And you'll know exactly the kind of movie we're looking at. The movie actually stars... Okay, listen to this. This is how bad we're talking.
Okay.
It's one of those movies where Cage is in, you know... It's like Season of the Witch. He's in the old style attire. It's like medieval times and all that. And then... Okay, so you have, like, the medieval times, and you have Cage, and you have, you know, we're in another country, but everybody speaks English.
Of course.
You have PG-13 stabbing and violence, where everybody's fighting with swords and axes, but there's no blood. But yes, that's not the worst thing about this movie.
Oh my god.
After everything I've told you, if you think that sounds bad, Nicolas Cage is a supporting player. The star of this movie is Hayden Christensen.
Oh my god, no!
Yes.
Oh.
This movie exists.
Yeah, it does. I'm looking at its horrid movie poster right now.
And you think it's going to be so bad it's great, or it's going to be a really, really fun time. But I'm sorry to tell you, this movie is just fucking bad. And so boring. Cage is barely in it. And that, if Cage had been in... No, his performance in this, yes. If he had been the star of this movie would have been a great time. Okay. But the star is Hayden Christensen, and Cage is very much a supporting player.
Just no.
Yes, everything that could go wrong with this movie practically did.
You said Hayden Christensen in starring role, but just no.
Yes. Shattered Glass, though. So there's that, but, you know, other than that.
You were talking about Refn a minute ago, too, so...
Life as a House, he was good in as well.
It's alright.
So, yep, that's what Outcast is. I didn't even tell you the plot. Something about a dude who, like, you know, kills his dad and then reigns supreme and then tries to kill everybody and then they kill him back.
What a great review.
Yeah. 3 more to go, and I am 2 minutes away from my half-hour deadline. We have the Riot Club. The Riot Club is a very British movie.
That sounds like...
Starring Max Irons, who is Jeremy's son, who was in The Host.
Oh, God.
You have Sam Claflin, and you have Douglas Booth, who was Romeo in the Romeo and Juliet with Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
Among many other things. And they're a part of this club at this university, and basically all they do is... I call it university, I'm a British one, yeah.
At the university.
Basically what they do is they get together and they rebel. They tear shit up and cause trouble and get drunk. And that's it. First
rule of Not Fight Club is not speak about Not Fight Club.
Mm-hmm. And it's based off a play, apparently, and the woman that wrote the play wrote the movie. And it's from, this is the director that did An Education.
An Education, yes. And One Day.
Yeah, both movies I wasn't a fan of. I'm not a fan of this one either.
Both movies I really enjoyed, so I probably would like this.
It's really just nothing going on. It's just them, you know, coming together. And then the centerpiece of the movie is this big, long scene when they're in the back room of this bar. And they're getting drunk and they're committing almost rape. And they're just doing all this debauchery. And then eventually they tear the place up and then almost kill the bar owner. And then that's what the whole centerpiece is. That's what a huge ass chunk of the movie is. That's where you can kind of tell it's based on a plot.
Trying to rip off A Clockwork Orange?
Yeah, a little bit.
Wow.
And I don't think the movie even brought that up.
Probably not.
And then at the very end, it kind of turns into who's guilty and who's not guilty movie. And that's pretty much all it is. And it's really not worth the time unless you... Like, there's no appealing actors in it. Max Irons has potential. Better fucking be in his blood. And then...
Let's hope so.
I mean, I know that's a huge shadow to come out of. I understand, but I mean, you know. But anyway, but yeah, I just have no interest in what this movie provided. Just, you know, I mean, I'm all for debauchery. You saw my review of The Wolf of Wall Street. I'm all for offending people.
Totally.
Doing horrible, terrible things for fun. But
we watched Clockwork Orange theatrically recently too, so.
But I just had no interest in what was going on in this movie. Just nothing at all. Half the guys in the Riot Club I couldn't tell apart from one another.
Oh, not one of those type of movies. Oh no.
So yeah, I wasn't a fan. Our next movie, as I just go into my half an hour, Force Majeure.
Well, finally.
The Sweden contender for the Oscar for foreign movie, foreign film, and it is about a family on a ski trip. Now, I'm going to talk about another movie here, and then I'm going to come back to Force Majeure for a second. I probably liked this movie better than I would have, because there's a movie it reminded me of that is so much worse.
Ooh.
Not worse, because this isn't bad by any means, but I mean bad. There is a movie that practically nobody saw called The Loneliest Planet. With Guy Garcia Bernal. I just learned recently Guile is how you say his name.
Guile?
Yeah, I heard that through Jason Schwartzman of all people.
Because
they're doing a show together now.
Yeah, that's right.
It's Guy Garcia Bernal and I forget the girl's name. And it is a 2-hour movie where they go on a hike.
Yeah. It's one of the most boring things I've ever seen.
And then right in the middle of the movie, there's a confrontation. And in this confrontation, he grabs her and uses her as a human shield. It just lasts for a second. And that's what sets off the rest of the movie, where it's supposed to say, you know, he basically betrayed her and basically showed how he really feels about her, and how if he's going to let her take the fall for everything before he dies. He's going to make her suffer everything before he has to. And that's what made his character, and the rest is how was supposed to be how it affected their relationship. The Loneliest Planet did not touch on that at all. It just wanted to keep hiking for another hour and forget what the fuck it was doing, and be the most excruciating movie experience I may have ever had in a movie theater.
And we watched this theatrically too, so I remember watching this movie theatrically.
So it's kind of the same concept, but executed so much better.
That worries me.
They're at this restaurant right next to the mountain, and then this avalanche starts to happen.
Okay.
And, you have the father, you have the mother, and you have the 2 kids. And when the avalanche is coming right for the restaurant, the father pushes people out of the way and runs away while the mother is trying to gather up the kids.
George Costanza in a fire.
Yes!
That's exactly what it is.
And basically leaves them for dead.
George Costanza in a fire.
Just because he acted on his instincts to run away from the avalanche and not even thinking about going back for them. But then the avalanche ends up not being anything. Like, it just kind of passes by and it's controlled. And then he comes back. And then it's kind of looming over them for the rest of the movie that he did that. And they have to basically decide what that means and what that says about them. And it's basically supposed to be like a commentary on, like, you know, the role of the man in a family. And how he's supposed to be protective and stuff like that. And how, had that been a real serious avalanche, he would have just literally left them for dead like that. And it's supposed to be like a biting comedy, too.
That's even funnier now thinking of it in that way.
But it's also, you know, it reaches those moments where they really start to question it. And there's a lot of scenes of long dialogue where they're trying to just sort through this. Because the big problem is that he's totally in denial of what he did.
Okay.
So, and then they bring in another couple and she tries to convince them of what he did, and then that affects their relationship and a tiny little subplot it goes into. And yeah, it's a really good concept, if not an original one. And it's done pretty well. The movie didn't need to be 2 hours. There's like a whole half hour after the first hour. There's like a whole hour or half an hour that's just like really, really redundant, and they just kind of keep going through this territory again and again and again. I understand it's because he's in denial and she's trying to get it through his head, but the whole going off on the other couple thing really wasn't too necessary, and it's still. You could still pull off this concept and condense it to about an hour and a half. And you wouldn't have that moment where it starts to feel redundant for a while, but then it finally comes back in the last half hour or so. And it does come to a pretty obvious conclusion. Like, you kind of, it's supposed to be kind of a... Yeah, if you think about it, you know where this movie's going to take its ending, so you can kind of say, oh, well... It's hard to say without giving it away, but you can get what I mean. If you see it, you'll know what I mean.
Okay.
But yeah, overall it's perfectly fine. It'll probably be the movie I'm rooting for in the foreign category.
Just by hearing about it, it's the movie that I'm rooting for.
Yeah. The acting is really great in it too, especially the lead actress. And yeah, the child actors in it are really good too. So, yeah, it is still worth checking out, but I don't think it's quite the top 10 masterpiece that everybody's bringing it out as, which, it's a foreign movie that's going to happen, so...
Did you say that with gritted teeth?
Our last movie is a documentary contender, The Kill Team.
Oh, okay.
Which is a very disturbing story about a guy that is in a platoon that is just straight up murdering people. Like, for real.
Really?
And he received death threats and everything, but he's trying to blow the whistle on it. But obviously, like we see in a lot of these disturbing military documentaries that are coming out, it's just a massive cover-up that he can't get past. And there's a lot of really disturbing shit in this. We see, like, real pictures of aftermath and his stories of how, all the stuff they had to try and go around, and they just kept getting shut down over and over and over again. And it was going to be his word versus the entire platoons, and how that was never going to work. And it's just really disturbing stuff that they bring to light, and that's always interesting, if a little scary to watch, but effective and tells the story that it needs to tell in a thorough and good way. So, yes. I passed my half an hour a little bit, but...
That's what we got?
Yes.
Alright, once again, we're going to do star amounts real quick, and then we're going to move on. I'm sorry.
Can you think about this?
Yeah.
Alright.
The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby.
3.
Men, Women, and Children.
2.
The Good Lie.
3.
The Trip to Italy.
3.
The Drop.
3.5.
I thought you actually might give that a 4.
Mm.
Pride.
It's very, very hard to get a 4. 2.5 for Pride.
It will be... I Origins.
Here, I'll make this real easy for you. It is going to be 3 for I Origins. Why don't you play an L71 in Comet?
Okay. That's interesting. I love Cloud Atlas. Was Comet the movie you told me that I probably shouldn't watch? For personal reasons?
Oh, yeah, you totally kill yourself.
Oh, man. Oh, nards. First thing came to my mind. Dying of the Light.
2.
Outcast.
I want to say 1, but I'll give it 1.5 for Cage.
That's all we can do. The Riot Club.
1.5.
Force Majeure.
3. We'll be nice to it.
The Kill Team.
3.
Alright.
But it's surprising. I'm surprised how many good ones are on here.
There's a lot of good stuff on this video. Hopefully you guys find this video, honestly, because there's a lot of good reviews on it.
Oh, I'm sure these get, 4 hits.
Yeah, most likely. I will say there's a lot of stuff you guys have been wanting to have reviewed for a while that are on this video. We have a video coming up which is 4 movies, and I think that kills your list for the year right now, at this moment.
Yeah, I think we just have, after Selma, Inherent Vice, and American Sniper, and A Most Violent Year, and Cake, you will be saying goodbye to 2014.
And as you guys should know from watching these videos, if you are a regular viewer, you would know that once 2014... once 2014's over, we're not going back to it. We're going straight ahead, full bore, 2015, with The Woman in Black 2 this weekend. Yay! So yeah, it makes my head hurt too, AJ, don't worry. So, we have a lot of movie content. Hope you guys and girls out there are enjoying that. A lot of wrestling content coming next week. The regular segments here on Pop, check those out as well. So, that's all we have for today. AJ, any more parting words for everyone?